Welcome to BDubz DM21. I'm BDubz and this is a New World build concepts video. The build you are about to see is purely conceptual and theory crafted based on information gathered from the closed and open betas. These have not been tested and all skills, passives, and other details are subject to change as we head into launch. This build guide is purely to convey the concept of the extremely robust custom class system New World introduces, and to hopefully provide you some direction when you make the journey to Aeternum. Today, we build the Warlord, a tank class designed for people who like to dish out more damage than they take. Built exclusively with PvE in mind, and this is going to be my personal build plan for launch. Let me know how I do. Hello everybody and welcome back to BDubz DM21. We're going to be talking about my personal build for New World at launch. Now this will be a PvE tank build. So this is going to be a PvE tank build focusing on the sword and shield and the Warhammer. This is a very aggressive build type designed to give a tank about as much damage as a tank can do. Now I'm doing this build that's going to be very personal to me, and I wanted to make this very clear that this is not necessarily a build I would recommend to other people. I know what I'm good at, I know what I'm strong at, I have a lot of experience with the two weapons that we'll be talking about today. This is something that works for me personally, but I wanted to share it with you guys to kind of convey the type of player that I am, some experience that I have with these two weapons, and that also just a reminder that, you know, people can give you builds all day. If the build doesn't work for you because you have a different play style or maybe different skill sets, then feel free to make adjustments and get the build to work for you. So today you're going to see me make a few weird choices that maybe other tank builds, you know, they might tell you to avoid, but those weird choices are because I'm weird. I'm a special person, and it's just what I like to do. Now, that being said, I also wanted to quickly let you all know that I am super stoked for the release of New World tomorrow. In fact, right now, I am actually downloading the New World client because preload is available. So hopefully you guys are downloading it now as well. Don't forget to get your updated drivers, update your operating systems, get yourself some food, hug your significant other, and make sure your kids are taken care of. Call a babysitter. I don't know. Look, you do what you gotta do. Take care of life so you can just veg out tomorrow and have a good time. It'll be great. But in any case, guys, I want to get down to this build, but before I do, I just want to say thank you. We've been putting content up on this channel now for about a week and a half, and we're just about at 100 subscribers. And that's awesome. I just wanted to say that's awesome for any new YouTube channel after a week and a half of putting out content to be near 100 subscribers. This isn't my first rodeo, and content creation is probably evident based on, I would hope, the quality of my videos. But in any case, guys, I know you're looking forward to getting into the build. You're tired of hearing me talk. Let's just get into it, huh? Let's just get right on into this, guys. So we're looking at the sword and shield as well as the hammer. We're going to take a look at our sword shield build. You might recognize this build as it has many similarities with my sword shield and hatchet build. And we're going to go over some of the differences here, but we're also going to talk about our basic rotation. So since we're talking about PvE tank, it's important for us to remember that this isn't necessarily going to be about PvP. However, since this is the first two weapons that I will be leveling, we still need to talk about PvP a little bit. Is it ideal for PvP? No, it's not. But day one, taking of forts in order to purchase settlements is very important. Being able to go out and perform PvP is going to be very important, not only for my company, but also for the faction at large. So we will be talking about PvP, even though this build is not for PvP. Now, there's going to be a few things that I do recommend as you are leveling up weapons for the first time and you don't have your ideal setup for PvP. Remember that even if you're doing PvE content, you still have probably a PvP responsibility for your faction or your company. You can respec for free up to a certain point. I forget, it seems to change and fluctuate, guys. I just know I thought it was when you're 10 or 11, 12 points into it, and I still had free respecs during the open beta. So look, at some point it starts to cost money. It costs as off, really. But you could still respec for free quite a bit, like as much as you want, really, at the beginning of the game. So there might be times where what I'm leveling, I'm going to respec a little differently if I'm jumping into PvP. And there are going to be times when maybe I'll just try to stick it out with my current build. Be flexible. Don't be afraid to respec. Have a plan of what you're going to do when you have to go into PvP. We're going to talk about it a little bit because I know many of you guys are going to be planning on doing PvE tanking and things like that, but still be called upon for PvP. So we're going to talk about some PvP things as well. That's just like sort of the big disclaimer for this video. All right. So this is a PvE tank build, and our rotation's pretty simple. We're going to engage with enemies using the shield rush. This is simply a 5-meter rush forward. It knocks back foes. It deals 125% weapon damage. It's on a 20-second cooldown, and that's really good. Its passives come with the weaken debuff. It's a 4-second weaken. It's not the best, but here's the cool thing about PvE and tanking. This is actually a mitigation. This actually keeps the boss from clapping those cheeks, and we like that, okay? Very important that we stop the boss from doing that. If you know the boss is getting ready to put out some type of tank buster or do a lot of damage to you, you could quickly throw up an improved rush and then block. Not a bad combination to get that weaken on the boss, particularly if the boss is getting ready to do an AoE, or maybe he's running wild and he's getting ready to hurt some of your teammates. You can actually reduce the damage they take by using improved rush. Very, very, very good passive here, especially in the right hands. Definitely do not sleep on this perk. It's very good. It's a 10% damage reduction, and we should take that. And then, of course, we have the Intimidating Rush, which is a slow. And the great thing is this is an AoE slow. This is going to be hitting all enemies within 5 meters. And listen to this, a 30% slow. That is a significant, chunky slow. It feels very good. This is definitely something to do when ads spawn, or you're initiating a pull and you want to make sure you get these guys under control. Very handy. In PvP, it's exceptionally handy. You're not going to have a lot of gap closing. You're going to depend on your allies to do a lot of that for you. But when you actually do rush in and land this rush, this is going to really provide some excellent CC for your team. Now remember, you should be wearing heavy armor here. If you're not, what are you doing? You should be wearing heavy armor. So since this is considered a CC, this duration will be increased by 20% at standard. If you actually pick up 300 Constitution, it'll be increased for 40%, which is actually quite hefty. So this slow is going to end up doing about 4.8 seconds in duration. Really nice. And with 300 Constitution, it'll actually be doing for about 5.6 seconds. It's a nice, lengthy, meaty slow that would really pay dividends for you in PvP. So I do recommend taking both of these passives. The next one we're going to talk about is Shield Bash. Now, Shield Bash, it looks like a fairly simple ability. It's a stun. It only does 50% weapon damage, 100% weapon damage after Intimidating Bash. Really nice. But really, it's a threat tool. It's designed to help you get threat on a boss and have the boss focus you. And this is a really, really good ability for doing that. Now, you might have noticed on my build, I did not take Concussive Bash. Well, here's the reason why. Stuns in New World, at least from what we experienced in the closed and open beta, are not stuns. They are sleeps. So the way stuns work traditionally in an MMO is that you stun the target for 3 seconds. That means there's 3 seconds of time that the target will not be able to move, will not be able to attack. They're just stunned. They're standing there. They're rooted. They can't do anything. And it's terrible. No one likes to be stunned. Being stunned is horrendous. In New World, when you are stunned and you take damage, you get direct damage, someone hits you, okay? you are then shaken from the stun. The stun is removed. It's gone. And so for that reason, you might look at this skill and go, oh my goodness, that's a 2-second stun plus an extra second with concussive bash. That's a 3-second stun. No. It's a 3-second sleep. 2 seconds, 2.4 seconds with heavy armor is plenty of time for you to do a heavy attack or to follow it through with something maybe like a reverse stab if that's something that you have picked for your bar. So this extra second of stun is not very helpful. Now this could change at release where stuns are actual stuns. And if that happens, then yeah, we take this. We take this 100%. We take this. But right now, based on what we saw from the open and closed betas, yeah, we don't need concussive bash. We did not take it, okay? But this is really meant for getting hate, keeping hate, providing some stuns for a little bit of that CC, and being able to help us out in PvP quite significantly. Anytime we can get a stun out there, it opens us up to a heavy attack, light attack combo chain, which is very strong for sword board. I would say, in fact, necessary. So definitely something to take and to have. The next ability we're going to have is Final Stand. Now, this is for all of 8 seconds. You will have 30% reduced damage, which is excellent. It's also an AoE taunt. 8 meters. There's only one other taunt like that, and that's Berserk from the Hatchet. So this is one of the best aggro tools at your disposal. Anything that you could do that can grab a whole horde of enemies to get them to focus on you, the better off you'll end up being. This is incredibly helpful, and I do recommend taking Final Stand for any sword and shield tank build. It's simply one of the most powerful mitigating tools in your kit. It's a great taunt. And not only that, but that damage reduction can be increased to 50%. And then finally, the last perk will actually restore 15% of your health when the Final Stand effect ends. This pairs very nicely with recuperation. So now that we went over the abilities on the sword and shield, we'll go over the passives here in a little bit. Let's take a look at the abilities on the hammer. Now this hammer build, you might look at this and go, this is very familiar. I've seen something like this. Yeah, we did a Juggernaut build that had pretty much the same sort of concept and idea. But let's talk about the Warhammer and tanking in general. The Warhammer, comparative to other weapons, has really bad restores. It has really bad damage mitigation. It's really bad on those two fronts of tanking. However, it has a decent taunt, a 4-meter taunt from Shockwave once it's fully upgraded, and it will boast this most damage you can do with your secondary tank weapon. The Hatchet comes close, but I don't think it's quite there. The Hammer will get you there. This is a greedy tank. Essentially, I know I'm really good at mitigating damage. I know I'm really good at character builds. I know I'm really good at surviving and making smart decisions when tanking in a dungeon. I know I'm really good at those things. So I tend to favor the greedy tank. A greedy tank is a tank that wants to play around at being a DPS while staying alive and taking all the hits. And that's kind of what I want to do. I want to play around at maximizing my DPS when we're running expeditions or other PvE elite type content. So that way we can get through the content faster, be more efficient. And not only that, but it's just more fun for me. This is not a tank build I would recommend anybody run unless you're like me and you want to have that greedy DPS sort of edge to your build. And we do that here. I'm really excited about the hammer portion of this. Like, I really, really am. And so let's go ahead and let's take a look at the skills that we'll be taking. So the first skill we're going to talk about is Path of Destiny. This is actually a really good skill, and I really like it a lot. Not because it does a lot of damage, but because it's flashy and stylistically it looks amazing. No, I'm kidding. No, it's because of the stagger. So the great thing about stagger is that you can't knock them out of a stagger. If a target is staggered, it will do the full stagger animation. And with the heavy armor, we do have the ability to make that stagger last a little bit longer. Now, it's not that lengthy of a time, but it cannot be interrupted. And since it cannot be interrupted, it makes life a lot easier for us. Like if someone were to hit the target that's being staggered, the target will still be staggered. It doesn't break them free of it. This is very handy for PvP, particularly group PvP. A lot of folk will not see this coming because they'll be focusing on higher priority targets. Tanks aren't exactly a high priority target in PvP. They never are. No one likes to fight them. It really opens up a lot of opportunities for us to stagger and create attacks of opportunities for our allies. Path of Destiny, because of how long of a linear wave that it is, it's almost like 15 meters. I could be mistaken, but it's a long hit, very wide too. Not very difficult to hit. It's very easy to hit, and it opens up an attack of opportunity for you. Now in PvE terms, because we were talking about PvP there, but in PvE terms, this is a really, really good thing to do. If you happen to have the Warhammer out and add spawn in the middle of a boss fight, you can hit them with that. That'll stagger them. You could switch to sword board, hit that final stand, aggro everything, and then go back to tanking. Or you could take a more aggressive path with the Warhammer, and after the Path of Destiny, hit them with the Shockwave, which then taunts them, which works very, very well. And you can follow it through with heavy attacks and your Mighty Gavel Justice for All combo if you so desire. That's more for single target, but if things are lined up nicely for you, you could hit multiple targets with that combo, so definitely worth keeping in the back of your head. But after you get that taunt and you have everything on you, switching over to sword board, getting ready to tank to stay alive, very important. Path of Destiny just opens up those opportunities for us. It makes it very easy for us to respond to those types of situations. Should Path of Destiny ever be used as part of a DPS rotation? And the answer is no. This is a utility ability. We don't use this to try to get more damage. You'll get more damage just doing a standard heavy attack. All right, and against a boss, you're not going to stagger him, not really. So this isn't really that helpful when you're trying to damage down or to kill a boss. So do bear that in mind when it comes to Path of Destiny, okay? Now, Shockwave, this is our taunt ability. This is a 3-meter radius attack out of the box. However, it is upgradable to 4 meters with Meteoric Crater. This is a stun. It applies a 2-second stun to all impacted targets. So it's an AoE stun. We have 2 stuns now. Yay. We like this. And this is very, very, very handy. Now, when you're off solo open world, this is going to be kind of a bread and butter attack for you, because it enables you to do a heavy attack followed by a Mighty Gavel into a Justice for All, which is incredibly powerful. There's a lot of damage going out here because Shockwave opened up that attack of opportunity for you. However, if you are fighting a boss and they cannot be stunned, and chances are they won't be, I'm not sure how much value you're going to get out of your Shockwave. If you cannot stun them, it doesn't open up an attack of opportunity for you. This would be a DPS loss over a standard heavy attack. And we'll get over how powerful heavy attacks will be for us here in a little bit. But it is something to bear in mind that this is also situational. Maybe reapply the Shockwave in order to get a taunt out there, but otherwise it's not going to help you with your damage. But this is where Shockwave truly comes into play in regards to PvE. Frailty. Frailty is a weaken. It is a 10-second weaken. Anytime that you have your hammer out and you decide, I'm going to go greedy DPS, I want to do damage as a tank. If that's what you decide you want to do, you can do that. You can use Shockwave, and Frailty will actually deal a 10% weaken for 10 seconds. Now, the cooldown on Shockwave is 20 seconds, but we're going to talk about how you can reduce your cooldowns in a little bit. Okay? But you should be able to if you're good enough at dodging, keeping position, blocking when you have to, and doing damage, you should be able to actually maintain near 100% uptime with this weekend. The other cool thing is that this weekend will still be active on the target even if you switch to sword board. So you will have the ability to put out a damage mitigator on top of your shield rush if you want to stack the two, or stagger them. So that way you're not blowing all your mitigation in one go. Very, very good idea, in my opinion, to stagger these mitigations as opposed to stacking them one on top of another. That will increase your longevity and make healing you a bit more predictable from the healer, who is already having an adventure of their own, trying to keep you and the rest of the party alive. So this is a very, very good ability, and that's the reason why Shockwave is so important. Now, there's one other thing about Shockwave, and as I said, I have a lot of experience with Hammer, and I love the Hammer. The Hammer is one of my favorite weapons, okay? But here's the other thing about Shockwave, is that you can also get a weapon perk that will apply a rend. I believe it's a 10% rend for 10 seconds with your Shockwave. So you do Shockwave, now you're doing a weaken, and you're doing a rend. The boss does less damage to you and your group. Meanwhile, the boss takes more damage from you and your group. Having that rend on there, that 10% rend, is excellent party support. And anything I can do to help my team from taking damage and helping them do more damage, that just makes me a better tank. This is a very greedy tank. We want to do as much damage, we want to mitigate as much damage, but we're really, we're trying to get that support and the DPS element out of our role in the tank position. This means you're gonna have to play at a higher skill cap. You're gonna have less things to keep you alive. You're gonna have less things to help you survive. But there are ways for us to do it. The Shockwave is a key part of that. Now, typically, after you do your Path of Destiny, Shockwave combo in open world, or anything that can be staggered and stunned like a player, you're going to follow it up immediately with a heavy attack. Now, I've seen this way too often in PvP, where a Hammer user actually lands the Path of Destiny, actually follows it up with the Shockwave, but then suddenly they don't know what to do after the Shockwave goes out, and it confuses me. The Shockwave is a 2-second stun, which is just enough time for you to do a heavy attack. Hammer heavy attacks hurt. They hurt a lot. They do a lot of damage, very chunky. And if you created an attack of opportunity using Shockwave, your immediate response should be follow it up with a hammer. A heavy hammer attack, okay? But check this out. We get this first passive here on the left side. And I want to talk about this because this is just as good, if not better, than some of these abilities, okay? Like, honestly, damage-wise, this passive is just as good as some of these abilities, if not better, actually. Hammer time. You will gain an empower on a heavy attack, increasing attack damage by 20% for 4 seconds. Now, I have to talk about this passive too when we're discussing abilities, because this is important as well. This is also a mitigator for you. Adds grit to Warhammer heavy attacks and grants a 15% damage reduction while the heavy attack grit is active. We do not have an active mitigation other than the weaken from Shockwave. As a result, we need to really do a good job of making sure we absorb damage, making sure we dodge when we're able, and making sure that we block when we're able. You have to do a really good job of doing that. However, sometimes mistakes happen, or sometimes you just go, I'm going to do a heavy attack right now. I don't care if I get hit. Well, one, you're going to have grit, so you're going to be difficult to interrupt. You're not going to be able to get staggered out of your move. So yeah. The next thing that's very, very important is that you get that 15% damage reduction. The timing for the heavy attack is quite lengthy. Your chances of you getting attacked, unless the enemy is stunned while you're performing the heavy attack hit, is very high. But we actually want to get hit in the middle of this attack if we can help it, and we'll talk about why in a little bit later. All right, so right now, yeah, you see that Steam has finished downloading New World. Look at that. Oh, beautiful. You love to see it. You love to see it. All right, let's get on back to our next ability. So heavy attacks, very important. Not only do they do a lot of damage, but they grant us an empower, and they're actually giving us a 15% damage reduction while we're performing said heavy attack. Very good. The next thing, Mighty Gavel. Mighty Gavel is one of the most undervalued hammer skills on our tree, and I don't understand it. I think people tend to look at this as some kind of execute from the Great Axe, that they think it has a long wind-up time or something, or the damage on it just isn't worth it. I don't know what it is. But let me just kind of break this down for you in a few ways. One, you're using a Warhammer. It sports pretty much the highest base weapon damage out of any of the two-handers. It is also strike damage, and because it's strike damage, most people you fight against or play against in PvP, they will not be mitigating for strike because the only source of strike damage is cannon and Warhammer. Hey, what do you know? You got a Warhammer. Really nice. They'll mostly be trying to mitigate for thrust damage, right? So we're not doing thrust unless we're doing a sword heavy attack, but that's a different weapon entirely. And so because of that, we know they're not mitigating against us, which is excellent. And we also have one of the hardest hitting weapons in the game. Warhammers are no joke. Those things hurt. They do a ton of damage. And then on top of it having a higher base weapon damage, the Mighty Gavel is a 160% weapon damage attack that actually gets stronger when the enemy is under 30% HP. It gets stronger by about 20%. If you do a heavy attack, 20% in power, Mighty Gavel, and the target's below 30% HP, you now have a 40% attack increase for this. It starts getting nutty as we continue going down the rest of our passives. This is a very, very big hit. You're looking at about 200% weapon damage with both of these buffs applied. So it's really, really strong. Actually, more than 200%, because we're talking about 20% of 160. Yeah, you know, we're getting into like that 210, 220 territory. Really nice, strong, meaty attack, right? This thing will also do more stamina damage, so it's very handy in PvP when we're fighting against tanks. If they're blocking, you can Mighty Gavel them, and that'll just destroy their stamina. Heavy attacks from the Warhammer will do the same. Warhammer is very strong against a blocking tank. So if you get into a tank v tank battle, whip out that hammer and let them have it. Just let them have it. Okay, here's the next one. Expedite. After a successful Mighty Gavel attack, gain haste, increasing players' movement speed by 30% for 3 seconds. So Expedite isn't like the best thing in the world, but in PvP could be very handy. It's a 30% haste, which is excellent. And we do have some neat slows from our shield. Sword and shield. The shield rush, that's a 30% slow. Here we get a 30% haste. Maybe if you're in the chase and you're really trying to catch somebody and stay on top of them, you can do some cool shield rush combos into Mighty Gavel. Not my preferred rotation, but situational. You need to be aware of what you have, you know, what options are available to you, and knowing that you can give them a 30% slow and you a 30% haste makes you the fastest dude in the world compared to him. So that's excellent, not a bad option. We're not taking Expedite because, you know, we would normally, honestly, I wish I could kind of trade this passive for something else, but we need it in order to take Justice for All. Now this is where Mighty Gavel really starts to shine and become super exciting, okay? Justice for All, press basic attack during the Mighty Gavel to add a second attack that deals 200% weapon damage. So now we have a base weapon damage of 360% between the Mighty Gavel and the follow through on Justice for All. A 360% weapon damage ability is stupid. And then, of course, we talk about empowering it with a heavy attack. So now we're getting 20% on top of that. So now we're getting at least 60% more on top of that. So now we're getting into like the 400% range if we do the combo correct. And then naturally, if it's under 30%, you get another 20% on top of that, you know, and then there's other things we're doing that's giving us more damage. And it gets, like I said, this gets nutty. How powerful Mighty Gavel Justice for All really is. This is really good for single target. It challenges executes total damage potential. And here's the cool thing. Mighty Gavel is not a heavy, long wind-up ability. It happens very fast. It's faster than a heavy attack. It basically happens in about half the time. It applies its damage in half the time of a standard heavy attack. So this is a really fast ability. You will do a ton of damage with this, and it hurts. Oh, it hurts so much. It's a beautiful thing to behold. Absolutely wonderful. Now, we're going to get into the passives. Been through all the abilities. We're going to go through the passives. Okay, we're going to go back to Sword Shield, and we're going to take a look at what allows us to tank. So one thing the Sword and Shield will have is significantly more mitigation. And we're going to talk about how important that mitigation is, because we are going to need to be rocking about 100 Constitution by around level 22, 23, especially when you're running Armine. If you're going to main tank it, you need 100 Constitution. That's non-negotiable. You need it. Here's the reason why. At 100 points, you're only going to get your 20% consumable strength increase, which is really good. But you're also going to get your max health by 10% of physical armor. You're going to get more max health by 10% of your physical armor. Well, this pairs very nicely with our Sturdy Shield, which grants us an additional 15% physical armor. You're going to have a very nice meaty HP bar, and you're going to want that for doing any type of tanking content in expeditions, including Armine. You're going to really want that. If you want to main tank and be a proper tank, you are going to want that. Very important. We then also get the elemental resistance, which simply just reduces all damage from magic types by 10%. This is very good, very strong, and we're always going to have these two perks whenever we have Sword Shield out. So we get an HP increase because of our 100 Constitution. We get an armor increase because of Sturdy Shield, and we get our magical damage reduction from elemental resistance. Very, very strong all the way through and through. We need that. The next thing we're going to do for active mitigation, this is what makes Shield so great, is that I can get a 10% fortify for 5 seconds just by blocking an attack. So essentially, after we're done with our gap closing, we have hate, and we decide we're going to hold on to our Sword Shield. We need to be a bit more tanky right now. Maybe the boss is really challenging us, and we can't really find that opportunity to use the Warhammer. So we're going to stay sword board for a little bit so we can tank and do our job, right? I mean, play it safe, if you will. Well, here's the cool thing. You can block an attack, and then for 5 seconds, you can do a full damage rotation while enjoying 10% fortify. Excellent. This will also pair very nicely with counterattack, where we get a 3% in power for 5 seconds when blocking an attack, and this can stack up to 5 times for 15% in power bonus. Now, you're going to be blocking quite a few attacks within a 5-second period of time. So the longer you have that sword and board out and you're blocking attacks and you're doing your tank job, not only are you getting a fortify, but now you're getting a 15% in power. That is very nice. I told you, this is a greedy tank. He wants damage. This tank wants damage. And we're getting it. We're getting it on both weapons, okay? So that's excellent. Being able to grab that free mitigation from a block and then being able to jump right into some more damage as we get 5 attacks blocked. Make sure you block an attack every 5 seconds if you can help it. And then boom, you are there in Damage City. You have your mitigations. You got your weaken out there from the shield rush. You got your fortified from the block. You have your empower from the counterattack. This is excellent. Very well built. I love this. This tree is amazing. Then, of course, we're going to take our Sturdy Grip. This will help us reduce our stamina damage when we're blocking a melee attack with a shield. Now, something to bear in mind for PvE tanking, you should be using a tower shield. For PvP, I would actually recommend taking a round shield. Round shields give you more damage at the cost of more of defense, but tower shields give you more defense at the cost of more damage. So do pay attention to what kind of shield you are using. Use tower shields for PvE, round shields for PvP. You don't need the tower shield for PvP. I would rather have more damage. If I actually catch you, I want to hurt you, that kind of thing. For siege, use the tower. For siege, use tower. All right. Now we'll go ahead and continue on with our other passives. We have Final Blow. The third attack in your light attack deals 30% more damage and causes more threat. Now this is great for both PvP and PvE. Naturally, we love more threat. More threat is great. We need it. That's how we do our job. But this pairs very nicely with the Empowered Stab. Empowered Stab gives you a 30% empower for 5 seconds. That is meaty and that is very strong. So say for example in solo play, you're going to probably do a shield rush followed by a shield bash, which then stuns the target. So then we do our heavy attack into a light attack combo. That means that that third attack in my light attack combo will have a 60% damage increase. 30% from the heavy empower and then 30% from final blow. That is a lot of damage. That is very thick. That is very nice. And for a tank, when we're getting that kind of damage, we're really helping our team and getting the boss dead. Now, by the way, the best way to keep yourself from taking damage is to kill the enemy. So yeah, that's good stuff. Definitely take that passive. And then finally, we're going to take recuperation. We talked about this already just a little bit, but this is going to increase all incoming healing and regeneration by 10%. How about that? Very handy stuff right there, huh? Yeah, I would think so. That also will help us with our restoration from final stand. And of course, that includes healing from your healer and consumables. This just gives you another 10% bonus to your consumable usage. So that's really good. We need all of those things. And then finally, defensive formation. Do not sleep on this. Your job as a main tank, and even in Siege, really, is to defend your team and keep them from taking damage. If you lack the ability to soak damage for your team, you are not a tank. You require defensive formation. Now, there will be moments where, especially in Siege, where you're holding a point and you've got that shield up and people are behind you using your cover and doing ranged attacks from behind you or supporting you in some way. If they get hit, they're going to take a lot of damage. You have repeaters out there in Siege, you have cannons out there in Siege, and anything I can do to reduce the damage they take is a win for me. That is huge. That is important. We need this. Not only that, but imagine creating a shield wall with a group of other tanks who all have their shields in defensive formations, and they're all kicking up that buff, right? You're supporting each other. You create an impenetrable shield, man. You know, and then if you start taking fire, final stand, shield up, and push. Guys, there are things you can do with the shield that I don't think people have really experimented with or really tried very well in Siege that can easily capture points. This is a must-have for any tank. I don't care what your offhand weapon is. I don't care what your theory is. You must have this. If you do not, you're not being a team player and you're being a little silly. Take defensive formation if you are a tank. Please. It is necessary. All right, now moving on, we have precision. You're going to be attacking the front of the boss or enemies a lot more than you will get backstabs, right? Because you're the tank. You're the tank. You should never be attacking the target's back. Not really. Not unless maybe you want to do a cool stun, roll through, heavy attack into the back. Certainly something you could do in open world solo play. Yeah, you can do that all day. But in group content, you're the tank. You're going to be attacking the front of the enemy that you are fighting. So having a straight 10% critical strike increase is really, really good, and you'll get a lot more value out of this than, say, a melee DPS who normally attacks the back and gets 100% crit chance, right? Right. We need this. This is a big pickup for us, okay? We're then going to take Freeing Justice. Now, this is something that I don't see a lot of tanks considering, and this is something that you as a tank need to consider. Debuffs in this game hurt. There are debuffs that reduce the amount of armor that you have. There are debuffs that slowly chip away at your health. Okay? There are debuffs that will slow you. There are debuffs that will immobilize you. There's a lot of things that's going to happen to your body, and you're not going to like it. Okay? You need, as a tank, a plan to cleanse yourself of a debuff. Now, on our sword, shield, and hatchet build, we had the debuff cleanse down the berserker line, where if you're under 30%, just by hitting a target, you'll get rid of all of your debuffs. Really good cleanse. It's an exceptionally good cleanse. They also had CC cleanses. So for example, popping berserk, if you're caught in an immobilizer or a stun or something like that, will actually release you from that CC. Very good stuff. The hatchet's very good at getting out of debuffs. Very good. okay? Sword and Shield and Warhammer, not so much. The Warhammer cleanse is only a duration reduction. That's not good enough for me. I want to get it off. Well, since we're already putting in a heavy attack as part of our rotation, it only makes sense that we would want to lose a debuff by performing a heavy attack. Heavy attack gives me a huge buff. It gives me the ability to then follow it up with a light attack combo, and now my heavy attack will then cleanse a debuff for me. So we're taking Freeing Justice on this build as our cleanse option, okay? Then finally, we're taking Counterattack. We talked about this already a little bit, but basically you gain a 3% in power every time you block an attack for 5 seconds. Stacks up to 5 times for a max of 15% in power bonus. Very smart strategy in PvE or PvP to block an attack, do a combo, block an attack, do a combo. And you should be able to block an attack once every 5 seconds in that way. So you keep your fortification up all the time, you keep your empower up all the time, and now you're going to keep your shield counter empower up all the time. So now with this, with a 15% empower, and this with a 30% empower, and this with a 30% more damage, you're looking at 75% increase in damage for that final blow of your light attack chain. That is strong. That is strong. That's good damage, man. That's really good damage. Now on a PvP build, a couple things to bear in mind. If you decide to sacrifice some mitigation for damage, you can do that. And I would recommend you pick up Achilles' Heel, which will give your final attack and your light attack chain, you know, the one we're trying to hit with 75% buff. Yeah, that one. Yeah, it's nice. That'll give you a slow. And on top of that, your Opportunist will give you 10% more damage to slowed foes. You have a slow already from Shield Rush, which lasts for 4 seconds. But being able to then do the Shield Rush, now the target's slowed. Bash, now they're stunned. Heavy attack, now that's got that 10%. Certainly not a bad thing to consider to try to squeeze out more damage. But honestly, I would go rather, you know, play the role of the tank in PvP. I don't think these two, though they scale very nicely with each other. It's a very nice synergized pairing of passives. I don't think we should take that personally. For me, PvP-wise, if I do trade anything out, it would be the Final Stand, even though it's really good. But the thing is that people are not going to want to fight you in a group PvP situation because you're a tank already. And there are some pretty good options over here for PvP, particularly Whirling Blade. Something we don't normally take on many of our tank builds, but something to consider about this is that it does provide a rend, only a 5%, so it's not like the greatest thing in the world, but it does provide a rend, and it could be used frequently. Okay, so Whirling Blade will reduce the cooldown on the ability by 10% for each enemy hit. And, you know, whether you're open world, you know, doing some stuff in the open world, maybe you want to do group pulls, you can respec out of Final Stand for a little bit, or maybe even respec out of the Shield Rush, though I like it a lot. And if you want to do some big group pulls and do some AoE farming, you can do this quite effectively with Whirling Blade. 10% reduction for each enemy hit. You're practically doing Whirling Blade once every 4 seconds if you can get a good tempo going. Not a bad option for PvP, particularly in a mass PvP environment. Just note that the 2-meter radius is very short, okay? It's very small, so you're really going to need to aim that properly and time it correctly in order to maximize the value out of the skill. 140% weapon damage, though, that's not bad. It's actually pretty good for Sword Shield, so not a bad one to take at all, okay? Now, let's get into the hammer passives. We're going to start on the Crowd Crusher side. We have to take at least one of these. And honestly, what we lack with the hammer is mitigation. We need to take Outnumbered. Now, in a standard one boss up situation, this will not help you at all. Okay, it just won't. And it's kind of lame. But if there's 2 enemies within 3 meters of you, now we're talking. Now we're getting that 10% damage absorption. Very handy, we need it. The other option is I can do this all day. It reduces stamina consumption by 30% when blocking melee attacks. You can only block melee attacks with the Warhammer. It's not a shield. So if you're getting attacked at range, use your shield. Honestly, I don't find myself blocking too much with the Warhammer, and there's a reason for that. We'll get into that here in a little bit. So I don't really see I could do this all day as having that much value. Then we get concussive impact. Now this is 15% damage against targets affected by the Warhammer debuff. What do you know? We actually have a really nice Warhammer debuff that lasts for 10 seconds. So we'll get a flat 15% damage increase with concussive impact. Our target should pretty much always be weakened, especially since we will be reducing our cooldowns of Shockwave quite a bit. This is nice. Very much nice. Love to have it. Prevailing Spirit. I'm gonna be honest with you. I almost didn't take this. Now, at first glance, you'd say, wow, 35% of damage dealt is health? That sounds awesome. Remember how I said that these Crowd Crusher abilities don't do much damage? 110%, 80%, like this is 115%, right? They don't do much damage. 35% of a 110% or an 80% weapon skill, right, isn't a lot. I mean, it's a lot, I suppose, if you get multiple enemies hit with the Shockwave, which would be helpful, right? That'd be a lot then. Same with the Path of Destiny, which is the only reason why, because I realized these are AoE abilities. This can stack nicely. That's the only reason why I took them, is they can stack nicely. If you actually hit multiple targets, suddenly you get really good value out of Prevailing Spirit. So I actually swapped out Stimulated Reduction for it. In a single target situation where you're dealing with a boss and you feel that you're just not getting that much healing out of Prevailing Spirit, or you don't need it, you could try getting the reduced cooldown for each enemy hit, but that's still an AoE function. So what would I rather have? A heal from my ability or a reduced cooldown for each enemy hit? And at the end of the day, I want heal from my ability. I think that might work better. So we actually got rid of this point here for Stimulated Reduction. We decided we didn't need it. There's other ways for us to reduce our cooldowns, and we don't need it. So I didn't take it. Instead, we took Prevailing Spirit. And those were our passives down the Crowd Crusher side. Now onto the Juggernaut side. I'm going to tell you right now, the biggest thing you could do to increase your damage at the beginning of the game, probably the first skill point I'll spend, is right here, Hammer Time. This is empowering a heavy attack and helps you with the rest of your attack combos. It gives you a 20% buff. It also leads you into Mighty Gavel, which is another really, really big damaging attack for you. And then this will pair very nicely with Hardened Steel, which now you have grit on your heavy attacks and damage absorption, which is again very good, very strong. We like this, okay? These are very good passives, to the point where I might even take Hammer Time into Hardened Steel before taking any of these over here or Mighty Gavel. These are really good. However, early game, we're not really worried about damage. We'll be okay. I'm pretty sure we can go Hammer Time, Mighty Gavel, Summary Judgment, because it's really nice to have a finisher, and then Hardened Steel. Come over here, grab Shockwave, Path of Destiny. We're going to probably favor Frailty and the Seismic Wave then next, and then we'll take a look at whatever passes we can get, you know, as we continue to level up the weapon. As far as priorities go, at the beginning of the game, I would say that's probably a good idea. But these two passes are super important. Take them. Epitome of Bog. Now this increases armor penetration by 10% for all Warhammer standard attacks. So that's your light and heavy attacks. This is really strong, particularly against more armored individuals. The more armored the individual is, the more value you get out of this skill. Well, we're tank busters in a way because of Mighty Gavel's exhaust. It has the ability to do 25% stamina damage against a blocking opponent, 25% additional. So this is really strong. Hammer is very strong against shields. If someone's blocking against your hammer, or, you know, maybe you got the sword board out and they're blocking against you, just switch to the hammer and take care of it. Like, legit, just take care of him. You could take him out really nice and fast, get him out of his block. Very good stuff, and then start really cracking down on him with that 10% armor penetration. Very good passive to take against heavily armored individuals or bosses. Very handy. The next one, on targets under 30% HP, increase damage done by heavy attacks by 15%. So this does not stack with Summary Judgment, but it does allow your heavy attacks to have that extra hit, that extra attack. Now here's the cool thing, this opens up an opportunity for you to get even more greedy with your Warhammer. Warhammer does a lot of damage on targets under 30%. An Emerald will increase your damage against targets who have less than, and you guessed it, 30% HP. When you're dealing with finishing blows in PvP, someone's at 30%, oh, you can get them, right? If you're dealing with a boss fight, hey, just because they're under 30% doesn't mean that they're dying anytime soon. That's a huge damage bonus for you, right? Or even open world where you just want to finish the fight and move on, that 30% comes in handy. It can really deplete a health bar quite considerably. It works very good. And if you decide as greedy tank that I'm going to put on a weapon that doesn't have a carnelian gem, I'm going to swap out my carnelian gemmed hammer for an emerald hammer. Now I'm really greedy, trying to get as much damage out of it as we most possibly can. Are we going to generate as much threat? No, but you're going to do a ton of damage, so that helps you generate threat. Are you going to be able to use the taunt with the shockwave? No, you're not, but if you're not having problems keeping hate with sword board, you won't need it. You could slot an emerald into this bad boy, and now we're talking some serious damage from the tank position. This will make your groups incredibly efficient if you're able to tank appropriately. So if you're a good tank, I do recommend this. This is very strong. Now here is quick recovery, probably our third most important passive that we have available to us. Your cooldowns are reduced by 7% with heavy attacks. Reducing your cooldowns is imperative. It is key, and it's key for tanking, especially because our damage mitigator on the Warhammer is Shockwave that provides weaken. So we need to reduce this cooldown by 50%, roughly. Now, are you going to be able to reduce it by 10 seconds to keep 100% shockwave uptime? Probably not. Warhammer heavy attacks are very hard and tricky to land at times. The bigger the target, the easier it is to land. Obviously, if you're tanking, which you should be, you're going to be landing them. It depends on how good you are with mitigating your damage, timing your blocks appropriately, and keeping that constant pressure of heavy attack on the enemies as best as you can. If you can do it, then yeah, you might be able to get that shockwave back up in about 11 to 12 seconds. You're going to get near 100% uptime with shockwave with this quick recovery. You've already significantly empowered your heavy attacks. You know, you have grit on it. You got damage absorption with it. Like, you should be able to get your shockwave up and running again. Here's the cool part: shockwave will heal you. So, yay, thank you, Prevailing Spirit. Shockwave will heal you, so you can get a little nutty there and trying to keep that debuff up and active. Just be careful. This is a very aggressive build for damage, okay? And then finally, Power Through the Pain. Now, Power Through the Pain is something that I oftentimes don't recommend. If you're a DPS class, you should never be taking damage. If you're smart, you know, you can dodge most anything around you, right? But as a tank class, and we are tanking, Power Through the Pain suddenly becomes really good. This is a 35% damage increase. And it's like, but it's for 1 second. Yeah, but you're tanking, so you're always getting attacked, right? Right. And we're talking about using heavy attacks with grit. So we expect to get hit during the heavy attack. And already we have 15% damage absorption while using our gritted heavy attacks. But when the heavy attack actually lands, if we get hit during that period of time, now it's going to have a 35% damage increase. And then if the target's below 30% HP, it's not going to take 15% more damage from there. And if they have the debuff on them, you're going to get 15% more damage buff there. And you know, and if you're doing a mighty gavel, well, then we got to, you get the idea, guys. That's a nice, thick damage increase. And since we're tanking, we can use it. We don't mind getting hit. That's sort of the idea behind this. If you're going to play the greedy Warhammer, then you want to kind of get hit. You're tanking, you're going to get hit. Getting hit just gives us more damage. Are your healers going to like you very much? No. Nah, the healer probably ain't gonna like you too much. But your group, everybody else in the group will love you because you just kill the boss right away. If you have a good, competent healer, I definitely recommend this build. This build is only as good as your healer. If your healer can keep you up and alive, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. All right? If things get hairy, switch back to sword shield, right? Do what you gotta do to survive. But man, when you get those attacks of opportunity and you can really open up some straight up DPS, you have the option to do that. And that is why I like this particular tank build. Guys, what do I call this tank build? I'm not exactly sure. I was thinking about it, and I think I came up with the Warlord. The Warlord build is what we're going to call this. I was tempted to call this the Paladin build. We even mentioned about, a proper Paladin build earlier. But I decided that no, this is more like a Warlord, because the way that this build is meant to be is sort of that greedy, I just want to kill you now. It has a huge stylistic hammer, and it just, man, it hits so hard and it looks so good. And I think you guys are gonna have a blast with this thing. Like, honestly, for you really good tanks out there who know how to mitigate damage, who know how to block, who know how to time your mitigation windows, you guys are really experienced in PvE tanking, you're gonna love this build. This build's for you, man. I gift wrap this thing for you. Enjoy it, because that's the type of player I am. Like, I'm all about this. Like I'm all about this. So definitely take a look at this build. Give it a shot. Other things to bear in mind: the Great Axe does not do as much damage, but the Great Axe rewards you with healing for the more damage you do. So if you're thinking about taking a Great Axe secondary, no, you won't do as much damage, but you have a lot more restore on it. And Hatchet is, I think, in my opinion, the best newbie tank, or even for advanced tanks, it's the best tank paired weapon in the game. It is significantly better than the Warhammer, significantly better than the Great Axe in terms of keeping you alive and allowing you to tank. The Hatchet is phenomenal for tanking. So if you're new to tanking, I recommend the Hatchet. Be sure to check out the Gladiator build also on this channel for that. Guys, I'm going to be streaming all day tomorrow. If you guys want to check out the streams, please come on down to twitch.tv/DM. I'm sorry, which changed recently. Twitch.tv/BDubz DM21. And I'll see you guys there, all right? Thanks for hanging out. Stay safe out there. Keep the faith and game on. I'll see you next time.